So, the recent Kannada movie, Kantara, 1, it presents itself as a historical story rooted in the spiritual and cultural vibes of coastal Karnataka. But underneath its pretty folktale look, there's a really big problem with how it tells the region's social religious history. It twists the Dalit Billava and Jaina Bangarasa traditions, wipes out the equal rights foundation of Tulu oral culture, and changes complex historical identities into one big story of divine power and kingly rule. The film starts with a grand statement. Whenever people start doing wrong things, Ishwara sends his helpers, Ganas, to earth to protect what's right, Dharma. This opening rule puts a Brahminical or upper caste idea of how the world works onto the local, nature-worshipping beliefs. And at the same time, it starts to flip the story, where the common people and rebellious folk heroes are swallowed up into a religious idea of divine approval. By showing Ganas coming down as Daivas, the film changes Tulunadu's super-equal and anti-caste spiritual traditions into tools that support divine rule. This is a clever move that erases the coastal traditions of fighting back, all in favor of a traditional strict way of thinking. Right at the heart of this distortion is how they've reimagined Deyi Baidyeti, the rebellious Billava mother figure worshipped all over Tulunadu. She's the foster mother to important folk heroes like Koti Chennaya, Koraga Taniya, Kananda-Kata, Baidyeti, and Jatti Baidya. In the Paddanas, which are oral epic poems that keep the living memories of the common people of the coast alive, Deyi Baidyeti stands out as a perfect example of a woman who defied norms, brought social change, and rebelled against the unfairness of the feudal system and caste divisions. Her foster children represent the struggles against untouchability and early attempts to reclaim land, even before these struggles became part of modern politics. Kantara, 1, however, changes Baidyeti's role into just a simple, mythical mother figure. She's turned into the passive foster mother of a child named Burmi, who just happens to find a magical stone and starts farming. This is clearly taking over the stories of Koraga Taniya and Kananda-Kata, but without any of their social or political rebellious spirit. Where oral tradition talks about Dalit and Adivasi communities collectively taking back land and their self-respect, the film turns this into a made-up story of destined divine plan. The harm here is to knowledge itself and to the meaning of things, changing historical rebellion into religious acceptance. Equally noticeable is how the film messes up the mixed legacy of the coastal Jaina Bangarasa rulers who governed areas like Bangrakulur, Mangalore, and Ulal. Old records, including Ganapathy Aigal's Ancient History of Dakshina Kannada district, show an amazing mix of religions and cultures under their rule. These Jain rulers supported Daivaradane, or spirit worship, built shrines for Pilichandi Daiva, constructed the Adishwara Basadi, and even gave money for mosques for Arab and Mapilai Muslim settlers. So, their rule showed a very open-minded religiousness and a coming together of different cultures, which was quite rare in pre-colonial South India. Kantara, on the other hand, completely ignores this mix of cultures. The Bangarasa is shown as being against Daivas, made out to be a feudal tyrant who is, hostile to spirit worship. In a particularly bad twist, the Bangaraya is shown fighting against Pilichandi Daiva, which is actually a historical mistake, given that Laxmapa Bangarasa himself ordered a shrine to that very deity. This made-up story, creates a clear opposition between the king and the Daiva, a division that's really not part of the real Tulu way of thinking. Moreover, the movie's story pushes Muslim involvement in coastal history to the side. the Mapilai and Beri Muslim communities, who were historically very important for sea trade and military alliances with rulers like Queen Abaka of Ulam, are shown as, minor or opportunistic players. In reality, historical records show their continuous resistance to Portuguese attacks during the 16th century, refusing to cooperate despite severe punishments. This removal of Muslim loyalty from the historical picture contributes to a cultural forgetting that hides the diverse foundation of coastal Karnataka. At its core, Kantara, one shows how resistance is made pretty and tamed through mythical stories. Stories of peasant and Dalit uprisings against feudal lords are turned into shows of divine judgment and fate. The Deiva, once a symbol of the community's moral power over powerful rulers, becomes a heavenly tool enforcing what's right from above. This top-down change in moral authority, from equal horizontal justice to a hierarchical top-down religious rule, marks a huge ideological flip. It fits right in with current Hindutva ideas where regional folk traditions are absorbed into a single Sanskrit-based framework. While artistic freedom, allows for creative reinterpretation, such freedom should never turn into historical lies. The film's picking and choosing of names, symbols, and myths from Tulu Nadu's Puttaradani tradition, without acknowledging their social, political, and caste-related history, actually causes harm to knowledge itself. It takes the real-life experiences of marginalized communities and puts them into a mythical past where their struggles are, made beautiful but effectively stripped of their political meaning. The moral duty of a storyteller isn't just to entertain, but to respectfully engage with the memories of those whose stories they inherit. When cinematic art silences the voices of the common people by turning stories of rebellion into lessons of obedience, cultural representation turns into, cultural appropriation. Kantara, one is not just a folk depiction of divine intervention. It's a deliberate act of writing history with a specific agenda. It reimagines Tulu Nadu's diverse, anti-feudal and mixed historical background within a narrative filled with Brahminical nationalism and patriarchal religiosity. In this transformation, the film goes against the spirit of the Paddanas, abandoning the memory of the Bangarasas, Baidyetis, and Muslim allies, who together shaped the moral and cultural identity of the coastal region. Cinema, by manipulating history to serve a mythical story, participates in erasing the very groups whose memories it claims to honor. The film's grandeur hides a deep moral bankruptcy, a forgetting of resistance, a silencing of the oppressed, and a rewriting of historical truth in the language of divine absolute power.